Breaking news, a warning from the Prime Minister that it is touch and go whether COP26 will secure the agreements needed to tackle climate change. His downbeat message comes just days before the environmental summit gets underway in Glasgow next week, attended by world leaders.
It's going to be very, very tough, this summit, and I'm very worried because it might go wrong, and we might not get the agreements that we need. And it's touch and go. It's very, very difficult, but I think it can be done.
Live to Westminster and our political correspondent, Kate McCann. Less than a week to go, Kate, and the Prime Minister far from optimistic. What has led to this pessimistic tone from him?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons for this perhaps slight change in tone from the Prime Minister, who, remember, just a few weeks ago was saying it's easy to be green, really talking up the way that global leaders could make significant changes to really help the outcome of this climate conference. I think since then we've seen some pretty significant global figures say they won't be attending, and that's been of concern to the government, particularly Russia and China, where there are big problems with emissions that really do need to be curbed. I think without the buy-in of some of those most polluting nations, it will be difficult for the UK government to claim success from this conference. But there are also some worries about the amount of money, the financial commitment that countries around the world are willing to put in, and really what this conference is actually going to be able to tangibly achieve. I think Boris Johnson has set his sights very high here, not just because, of course, the environment is a central policy for this government. There's been some significant commitments from the UK government on how to cut carbon emissions, for example, but also because this is really a huge global summit. Boris Johnson is a leader who's left the European Union. He wants to put the UK back on the map in terms of the centre of global change. This is a real opportunity for him, and so he needs it to go well. And actually, this press conference with children has been a fascinating watch, I have to say. Children always ask very interesting questions, very honest and direct questions. It's also very difficult for Boris Johnson not to answer them, perhaps more transparently even than he would with some journalists. So his answers have been really worth listening to. You heard him there talking about how things are touch and go, how they might not necessarily be as successful as he hoped. We've seen him sort of hedge his bets a little bit before in the run-up to this conference, particularly around the G7, suggesting that people really did need to pull up their socks, if you like, and really make some significant moves towards making this conference a success. But he's also been talking about recycling. He said we can't recycle our way out of this problem. You can only recycle things once or twice. He actually shocked, I think, his co-host a little bit from the WWF by saying that really this is not the answer to such a global crisis emergency. He's also been talking about things like sustainable farming and about packaging in supermarkets. He was asked whether you could get rid of some of the plastic wrapping, for example, on some of the foods that we all buy in the supermarket, and he said that was the totally right idea. He's also been asked about what global leaders could do to make a difference here. The Prime Minister said he used to be able to cycle everywhere. He said something like those were the days. So I think going into this conference, the government here is setting a slightly different tone, perhaps trying to manage expectations about what COP can actually achieve. But make no mistake, there will be lots of concern and lots of pressure now on Boris Johnson and on other global leaders. He was asked that point repeatedly by the children at this press conference. We want you to tell global leaders to do more. He said there will be a lot of peer pressure on them from countries that really have stepped up to the plate, the ones that perhaps haven't, and he hopes that peer pressure will result in some real change.